Imagine, just for a second, the vast hidden mechanics operating right beneath the surface of your own mind. We're about to jump into the deep, maybe a little uncomfortable, but absolutely fascinating psychology of human attention. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the invisible forces that dictate exactly what we look at, what we click on, and honestly, what keeps us lying awake at 2 a.m. We're going to explore the raw evolutionary instinct behind our total addiction to bad news.
Picture this really stark contrast. A plane lands safely at its destination. The passengers get off, they grab their bags, they go home. Nobody talks about it, right? It doesn't even register on our radar. But then, a plane crashes. In an instant, the entire world is paying attention. It's the only thing playing on the screens at the airport. It dominates the airwaves. It completely floods your feed. So why is that? Why do we completely ignore the safe landing, yet give absolutely undivided attention to the disaster? It's actually a pretty huge mystery when you really stop to think about it. Why do negative headlines get so many more clicks than positive ones? Like, why is it that when we're just casually swiping on our phones, words like crisis, warning, or danger literally freeze our thumbs in midair? We just stay glued to our screens, absorbing all this information that we actively know is making us anxious, stressed, and physically tense. Well, to figure this out, we kind of have to do some time travel. Let's transport ourselves, I don't know, maybe 20,000 years into the past. You're an early human, and a scout runs up and gives you two pieces of information. First, hey, there are some beautiful flowers near the river. Second, there is a massive predator hiding near the river. Which one do you care about right now? Obviously, the predator. Ignoring the beautiful flowers has literally zero consequence to your life, but ignoring the predator, that could cost you your life. Our ancestors survived because they were incredibly good at prioritizing threats over opportunities. And psychologists actually have a name for this evolutionary survival mechanism. They call it negativity bias. This is basically the brain's hardwired tendency to just pay way more attention to negative info than positive info, even if they're of equal intensity. It's why one stinging insult from a coworker completely outweighs 10 genuine compliments. It's why one failure can totally overshadow a string of wins. And it's exactly why one terrifying headline captures your attention better than 5 uplifting ones. So if you find yourself always drawn to bad news, relax. Your brain isn't broken. It's doing exactly what evolution designed it to do to keep you alive. But here's where things get super tricky. The true danger emerges when that ancient caveman hardware collides with our modern world. We obviously don't live in caves anymore, but modern news companies are fiercely competing for our attention because, more attention means more viewers, and more viewers means more ad revenue. So what captures that attention best? The exact things that trigger our ancient threat detection system. Disasters, crime, conflict, economic crises, scandals. We click on these totally instinctively because our mind is just screaming for more info about potential dangers in our environment. You've probably heard that old journalism industry saying, if it bleeds, it leads. And look, it's really important to understand that journalists aren't necessarily sitting around in some dark room maliciously scheming to manipulate us. Actually, they're just responding to the metrics of human engagement. Negative stories, just by their very nature, pull a far stronger response from us than positive ones ever will. The media is essentially just serving up the exact meal our evolutionary biology is demanding. Which brings us to this wild modern phenomenon. It's a digital trap we've totally built for ourselves, and we call it doomscrolling. It's this relentless, exhausting cycle. Searching, scrolling, refreshing. Why do we do this for hours on end when we know it makes us feel terrible? Well, it's because the human brain finds uncertainty deeply, deeply uncomfortable. When something worrying happens in the world, the brain tries to find safety through information. We convince ourselves, if I just get one more update, I'll finally feel safe. But there's always another article, another warning. The cycle literally never ends. And notice the heavy reliance on emotionally charged content to drive that engagement. Fear, anger, outrage, shock. People are just so much more likely to comment, share, and react when these intense emotions get triggered. Social media algorithms are specifically engineered to surface the content that generates the highest engagement. So because of this algorithmic amplification, negative stories just spread like wildfire. They completely and utterly outpace positive news. Now, over time, consuming hundreds of these amplified negative stories every single week plays a massive trick on our minds. Psychologists call this the availability heuristic. It basically means we assume events are way more common just based on how easily examples pop into our heads. So if your feed is constantly bombarding you with stories of natural disasters, crime, and global crises, your brain naturally starts to overestimate how dangerous the world actually is, even if your personal day-to-day life is perfectly safe. It creates this highly distorted, funhouse mirror view of reality. Let's ground this with a real-life example. Think about the fear of flying. So many people are absolutely terrified of air travel.
even though statistical reality shows us it's one of the absolute safest forms of transportation on the planet. So why the intense fear? Because plane crashes, while incredibly rare, get massive, dramatic media coverage. Car accidents happen by the thousands every day, but they mostly don't make the national news. A plane crash is rare, it's dramatic, and the brain remembers those terrifying images so vividly. We basically end up confusing media attention with actual probability. And living in this distorted reality, it carries a really heavy price tag. The psychological cost of constant exposure to negative information goes way beyond just putting you in a grumpy mood. It silently wrecks our sleep, it totally shatters our focus, it cranks our stress levels up to the point of severe mental health strain, and can even cause issues in our personal relationships. When your brain is forced into this constant, unending state of high alert for threats you can't even control, the inevitable result is just deep, constant mental exhaustion. So, how do we fix this? Does this mean we should just delete all our apps, throw our phones in the ocean, and completely ignore the news? No, not at all. Being informed about the world is definitely important. But the goal here isn't ignorance. The goal is balance. We need information to help us accurately understand reality, not to trap us in this perpetual state of fear. The healthiest approach is learning how to be informed without becoming completely consumed by it. So here are the actual actionable steps to break that doom scrolling cycle and reclaim your peace of mind. Step 1, notice your habits. Next time you open a news app, just pause for a second and ask yourself, am I actually looking for useful information right now, or am I just feeding my anxiety? Step 2, set time limits. Choose 1 or 2 specific times a day to check the news, rather than just refreshing constantly from the moment you wake up till you go to sleep. And step 3, balance your information diet. Let's expand on that third step for a second, because finding balance means you have to actively seek out the other side of the human experience, the side the algorithm might be hiding from you. Actively look for acts of kindness. Go read about some cool scientific breakthroughs. Celebrate human achievements and stories of real, deep resilience. The world contains massive problems, yes, for sure, but it also contains incredible progress. To have an accurate view of reality, your daily information diet absolutely has to reflect both of those things. But honestly, perhaps the most powerful way to reduce the anxiety caused by global news is to shrink your focus right down to what you can actually control. You cannot solve every massive global crisis on your screen. Literally no human can. But you know what? You can improve your local community. You can help a neighbor. You can learn a new skill. You can take care of your physical health, and you can build meaningful relationships. Taking tangible, local action is incredibly effective at fighting off those feelings of helplessness that endless scrolling creates. Look, the reason we're drawn to bad news isn't some huge character flaw, and it definitely isn't because humans just enjoy suffering. It is simply because our brains evolved to notice threats to keep us alive. But once you actually understand that ancient instinct, you gain something remarkable. You gain the ability to choose where your attention goes. In a world that is practically overflowing with endless headlines screaming for your focus, the ability to intentionally direct your own attention is hands down one of the most powerful skills you can possibly develop. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final, absolutely vital thought. The world is not as dangerous as your newsfeed makes it seem. Seriously, take a deep breath. Just look away from the screen for a moment today. Recognize the safety right there in your immediate surroundings, and remember that you have the power to step right out of this cycle. I really hope this explainer has given you some solid tools to take back control of your attention. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today.